Monikah is having computer problems. She's on her way, okay?
That's cute, Mastermind Irma. That is so cute.
She's here, Sorrel. She's here.
That's so,
Okay,
that's
good.
so horribly cute. Oh.
Yes,
Humanity,
yes.
awesome.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Thank you, Gio, for opening the day. Welcome to the Daily Huddle Spiritual Matters Thursday. We're going to be talking today about what's the difference between self-love and self-care. And what do you think it is? I'm going to have, Gio, are you there? Can we have a dialogue about this?
Let's have a dialogue about it.
What do you think the difference between self-love and self-care is?
Self-love and self-care. There's a very thin line, I think, between self-love and self-care. I can't help but to go deep on you, Dr. Ogando, on this one.
Okay, let's do it.
Because
Let's do it.
yeah, because I think most of my life is somewhere inside of that question, the difference between self-love and self-care. And okay, I'm gonna start from wherever, and then I'll go from there, and then you go from there. I think that for me, self-love and self-care is a journey, an inward journey to discover balance. I would say to discover balance between the person I see in the mirror, in a biological and physical sense. There is an optimal way to experience life as the opportunity that life is with my body and with my senses, and self-love and self-care is inside of that. There is also an inward journey for me, more in the realm of being or spiritual, that is separate from the physical aspect, where there is discovering myself as a possibility, as nothing, as a creation.
Sure.
And I think that journey inward in that way is self-love and self-care. And then there is taking care of the people that I care about. Not only
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, and then there is not only in the context of taking care of them lovingly, but also taking care of them in the impact I am to them. How I live my life impacts the people that are around me. How I communicate, and creating a balance and a bubble of compassion and communication and love also is self-love and self-care. So I'm going to start there, Dr. Ogando. It's a big question for me.
It is. It is. Okay, so
that's where I'm going to start.
I think I'm going to insert a couple of definitions so that it can help us move the conversation. And then I'm going to recommend a couple of books. So we're going to nerd out. We're going to nerd out. This is, you thought self-love, self-care conversation was going to be about massages and stuff. No, we're going to nerd out. So the first definition that I'm going to give is the definition of love. According to M. Scott Peck in the book, The Road Less Traveled, write that down. Road Less Traveled, M. Scott Peck. Love is defined as the will to extend oneself for the spiritual growth of another. The will to extend oneself for the spiritual growth of another. In fact, you could, when you love yourself, it would be extending yourself for the spiritual growth of yourself, right? The will to do that. And we're going to go back to that because those words are very precise. Then there's cathexis. Cathexis. C-A-T-H-E-X-I-S. Cathexis. And in psychology, Cathexis is defined as the investment of mental and emotional energy to a person, object, or idea. So that you're spending emotional and mental energy on somebody means you have cathexis for them. They don't even have to be present in order for you to have cathexis for them, right? I have cathexis for Prince. He's not even on the planet anymore, right? So investing emotional and mental energy on a person or an object, that's cathexis, right? And a lot of times people mistake cathexis for love when they have those butterflies in their stomach with someone. Ooh, he called, or ooh, she's coming, and oh, da, da, da. So that mental and emotional energy that you spend on someone, sometimes we confuse that with love. And then there's care. Giovanni mentioned care. And care is providing or fulfilling the needs, preferences, or requests of another. Providing and fulfilling the needs, preferences, and requests of another. Now, I want you to notice something. You can have love and not have cathexis. Let me say that differently. You can have love. Love is kind of like the foundation of care and cathexis. Love is kind of like the foundation of care and cathexis. The reason why I would be willing to fulfill and request the needs, preferences, and requests of another is because I'm willing to extend myself for their spiritual growth, right? The reason why sometimes I spend mental and emotional energy on another is because I'm willing to spend myself for the spiritual growth of another. However, it is possible to have care or cathexis without love. I told you it's going to get nerdy. Have you ever had someone fulfill a need and not care for you and not love you? Yeah, it happens all the time. There's some parents in our generation who put a roof over your head, and then they fulfill that parental requirement, but you did not feel loved. And when it was time for you to venture out and to follow your life purpose, they were like, nah, I need you to be a lawyer. I need you to be a doctor. What are you talking about? You don't have me.
They care for you, but not about you.
Yes. Oh, that's a great distinction. Yes. And so when we're talking about self-love versus self-care, it's a very purposeful question. Are you willing to extend yourself for the spiritual growth of your life? Or are we just gonna go walk around fulfilling needs, requests, and preferences? Are my glasses twisted? It feels twisted on my face.
No, they look straight.
Okay. So, a lot of times we are going through life fulfilling the needs, cares, and preferences of other people, and it costs us. It costs us stress, energy, sometimes even life force, right? And so we think that in order to fill our own cup, that we then have to remove care from somebody else and invest it into ourselves, as though there's a limited quantity of cathexis or care that you could possibly have. Now, there is a limit in external resources such as time and money, right? There's only so much money coming in, there's only so much money going out, there's only so much time, there's only 24 hours in the day. That is true. We have some external constraints. But you're not limited in the care and cathexis and love that you could give to oneself or to another. And so a lot of times, self-care doesn't have to be an activity such as a spa day. I just recently, on Thursday, celebrated a birthday. And so, and I had a spa day. Thank you very much. I had a spa
Happy
day.
birthday.
Thank you. But it felt even more caring when somebody asked me to go out to dinner that night, and I didn't feel like going out. And it felt more caring to say, no, how about we just order in? Than to comply with, because somebody else they felt the festivity, they wanted to show out and da da da. I was not in that energy. And so when you are looking at self-care and when you're looking at self-love, I'm going to say the same thing applies with the definitions that I just gave you. That love is the foundation of care and cathexis means that self-love is the foundation of self-care. And for you to fulfill the needs, requests, and preferences of yourself require that you are willing to invest yourself for your own self-growth. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that means saying no. Sometimes that means honoring your own boundaries. Sometimes we want people to honor their word more rigorously than we are willing to honor our words ourselves. Oh, you can't say amen, say ouch. So we have a list, right? We have a list of things that we do with self-care. It was like, oh, well, the thing I love to do is go play tennis or go play golf or, take myself, this is my favorite meal to eat or da da da. And those are all beautiful. Sometimes you feel loved when somebody does those things for you or facilitates those things in your life. But can you see that sometimes the people that facilitate those things in your life may not care about your self-growth? They're just doing it to placate you, to be like, okay, see, let me see if I can get a week's worth of slave labor out of this person if I just, do the gesture. Yeah. This is an important distinction because then what happens is when you say yes, your yes can just be a yes without obligations, without tit for tat, without bartering. And your no can be a no without explanation, without guilt tripping, right? And for you to be able to move in the world honoring yourself creates permission for other people to honor themselves and to honor one another. I want to talk about it. What do you say about it, Stan?
Well, it just came to my mind. That was not an original thought when I said, sometimes people care for you, but they don't care about you. My mentor used to say that all the time, Dr. Joe Louis Dudley. He used to say that in our sales meetings quite often. And when he was talking about, how important it is for us to really recognize people that we are really aligned with, and people that are really aligned with us, and really, are there for you in those deeper emotional ways.
Yeah.
Because as you said, it sounds kind of negative, but it's true. Sometimes people are just with you because they want to get some mileage out of you. What'd you call it? You said get some kind of some slave labor.
Slave labor out of you, yes.
So they'll care for you, but they don't really care about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so that's why it's so important to care about yourself, and it's so important to care about other people. So we get the experience of that genuineness.
Right. Well, and it will start with the conversation of like if we're saying that love is the will to extend oneself for the spiritual growth of another, then whose spiritual growth are you willing to extend yourself for? Make a list, say their names. Right? Because it all sounds so lofty and it's so beautiful. Da, da, da. Okay, great. Let's put some boots on the ground.
Okay.
What does it practically mean in my life? Whose spiritual growth am I willing to extend myself for? Am I willing to extend myself for my wife, for my husband? If they are going through a dark night of the soul, am I willing to be patient, or do I just need them to get on it? Because I have a vision of what my life is supposed to look like, and you're fucking up the progress. Excuse my French. Right? Whose spiritual growth am I willing to extend myself for? Am I willing to extend myself for my employees? my coworkers, my peers, my business partner, my family members? Or is there too much old story in the family of origin for me to be able to see my father, my mother, my brother, my sister in a new light? Because they're fulfilling a particular role in my life. What if they have a different destiny in their life and I just can't see it because I'm too stuck in who they were when I was 6? Right? Put their names down. Whose spiritual growth are you willing to extend yourself for? And how long does it take before you put your name down? That's noticeably interesting too. Who do you have cathexis for? Who do you have care for? And what does that look like? These are all journal prompts for you. What does that actually look like? What does it look like to fulfill the needs, preferences, and requests of another person? Which preferences? Which needs? Which requests? Because I'm not fulfilling everybody's or anything. Lord have mercy. A girl's got to know her limitations. I said that in my best Clint Eastwood voice. Right? And so when you can be clear about what that is for yourself, here are the people that I'm willing to extend myself for their spiritual growth, or here are the needs, cares, and needs, preferences, and requests that I'm willing to fulfill or contribute to. Well, then when somebody says something that's outside of that, you can say no. And the no is a favor. Trust me, you don't want me to fulfill a particular need or whatever, because then I'll be resentful and you'll feel the weight of that. Right? I'm committed to keeping the energy clean between us, so I'm much more committed to our relationship than I am to a particular image. Make sense? Fritz, welcome. You have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. It's a privilege to be part of this community. So thank you so much. This conversation is extremely appropriate for me because I found myself at a crossroad where I'm trying to make some, decisions about certain things, and this conversation is very helpful because at a very early age, I would say I've been very blessed by having some wonderful people in my life, and they've done a lot of things for me, never really asking anything in return. As a result of that, and as I got older, I've always felt that it is my responsibility to do the same. So over the years, I've taken on a series of projects just to do that, including getting into certain type of businesses where the main purpose of that business really was to give back to the community in return for all that's been given to me. So as part of that journey, over the last few months, I've found myself exhausted.
I bet, right.
So this conversation really is helping me to reframe some of the issues that are currently going on, and maybe help me rethink some of the things that I need to do in the context of self-love and self-care, in the context of cathesis and so on. So
It's timely.
Yes. So this is very timely. So very much appreciate the conversation.
Awesome. There's one of the things that we say here in the Daily Huddle, and that I say in my personal life, is to always check your assumptions, audit your assumptions. And the reason I say that is because a lot of times some of the decisions and conclusions that we come to are based on outdated or incomplete assumptions, if not altogether inaccurate. And so sometimes we say no to certain things because we have the assumption that that it's not useful, that it doesn't matter, that somebody doesn't care, or whatever the case may be. when it has been my experience that it's not so much that somebody doesn't care or that they're taking advantage of me, rather that we show our appreciation and underestimate or overestimate the meaning of something or the importance of something based on different criteria. And because it's different criteria and different communication styles, sometimes those things get lost in translation. And so it's important to have those kinds of conversations, because otherwise I'm interacting with the you that I have in my head and not the you that's in front of me, right? So it's important to have those clarifying conversations. Sorrel, you have your hand up too. Come on over.
Good morning, Dr. O. How are you?
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well. So you began this by defining care, then you defined love, you defined catexis, and care. And I'm struggling with the definition of the word self.
That's what we started talking about.
Because as I'm thinking of it in the context of today's, Thursday's context, spiritual matters, it feels to me as if defining myself as my body, my needs, my things, like where self-care would conflict with care. So I'm grappling with that. Do you have a notion of self that differentiates between what I regularly refer to as myself and self in a spiritual context?
That's a great question. Ooh, such a good question. I am going to trust your higher self to answer that for you, but I'll give you some of my own insight on it. There is a part of, I think all of us have an experience of being a triune being, right? A three-part being. And I'm going to say that the three parts of all of us, all of humanity, is your spiritual self, your higher self, soul, etc., your consciousness, which is the choice point, and the lower self, the material self, we'll call that the ego. So you have spirit, choice, or consciousness, and ego. And in the ego, anything that makes you separate is part of the ego. You have a very specific biography. You have a very specific body. You have a very specific personality. Those things that make you different from anybody else, we'll put that in the ego category. And the things that make you one with everybody else, your soul, your connection to God, etc., all those things, I'm going to put it in the spirit category. And then the consciousness is the choice point, the one that says I'm going to step left or I'm going to step right.
From Brentwood and why?
Oh, somebody's on mute. Somebody should be on mute. Lizette, can you help me put that person on mute? Thank you. And so when we're saying self-love, you're right, Sorrel. Which self, right? And that's where I think the confusion sometimes comes in. The reason why we sometimes confuse self-care with self-love is because we think caring for egoic needs, meaning like your body, your personality, etc., that level of care is love, and it isn't, because there's no spiritual extension there. Whereas when you're caring for your soul's purpose, when you're caring for your destiny, what you came here to do in this world, in this life, in this incarnation, those more spiritual concerns, and caring for those is more self-love than anything else. So what a great distinction. Thank you for putting that in the space. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Does it open something up for you?
Yeah, thank you so much for going there.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So I know that sometimes when I get on here, I say some things that may sound a little funny, and then there's some things that may sound a little confronting, and that's okay. That's on purpose. But I really want you to take on those journal prompts. Whose spiritual growth am I willing to extend myself for, including myself? And whose needs, preferences, and requests have been filling up my time and attention? Whose do I prioritize? Sometimes even over my own, right? So sometimes when you check in with yourself, and again, if you're the kind of person who is busy, who doesn't write much, etc., journal prompts don't have to just be with a pen in hand. It could be you driving down the street and doing a voice memo for yourself. The important thing is to have that self-reflection. The important thing is to have that kind of clarity so that you understand what you're doing and why. So that the next time that you have to make that behavior, it's out of a choice and not out of reaction or custom. And Rashida with the final word.
Thank you so much. Grand rising, everyone. I'm so happy that I could share space because I'm going through a 40 days fast, and you touch this topic, and the question that Sorel asks also give me a whole train of thought. I'm fasting, I'm going through my cleansing, I'm going through my journey. And when you ask the question, self-care, self-love, it's just open a whole big can of worm. I was like, wait a minute, where do I stand with this? How can I answer this question? Not to anybody else, but to myself.
Yeah.
My spiritual growth, my consciousness, my awareness, self-love, self-care. Where does this fit in the journey that I'm going through? So trust me, I have a lot of questions and I have a lot of answer for myself.
Yeah.
For finishing my fast that I am 10 days away from finishing it. Thank you so much, because I'm going back and check myself before I wreck myself. Thank you so much.
Yes,
thank you so much,
very
Dr.
important
Ogando.
work. Very important work. CC says on the chat she's meditating and praying while driving to Texas. Hopefully not at the same time, Lord. Hopefully somebody else is driving while you're praying and meditating. Otherwise, how are you gonna get to Texas? Yes. Okay. So please take that on. Take on the journal prompts, even if it's a voice memo to yourself, if it's writing in a notebook and you throw away the paper or burn the paper, whatever the case may be. The purpose is not to memorialize this information. It's to clarify this information for yourself so that when you are engaging in a particular behavior, you're doing so from a place of intention, from a place of deliberate commitment, and not just because you're used to it, not because this is expected of you, but because you're choosing it. On a day-to-day basis, you're living by choice, by design, and not by chance or default. We love you. We know that you are going to go out there and laugh generously. You're going to give of your time, energy, and attention. You are going to stress less, exercise more. Remember that twerking is a kundalini raising exercise. It's perfectly okay to do it. And if you're too embarrassed to do it, that's fine. Do it in the privacy of your home, but get some exercise. Make sure that you also eat more plant-based. Sleep, please, at least 7 to 8 hours, 9 if you can. Did you know that feminine-centered beings need more sleep than male-centered beings? That's another sermon for another Sunday. And then, of course, finally, audit your assumptions. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. That's going to save you a lot of face, save you a lot of stress, and have you more prepared to face your world. We love you. Thank you. See you next time.
Lessons Daily Huddle family. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, everybody.